Hey everyone, welcome to my first recap of the German Amateur Chess Championships that I played from the 5th to the 7th of January 2024. And so basically just figured out, I found out about this tournament like a day before the tournament started on Google, and then I was thinking I was in Berlin for till the 11th, so I thought, why not play a tournament because I haven't played one in a good like 5 to 6 months. My last tournament was in Melbourne, and so FIDE rated tournament. So I was thinking, yeah, I want to try to get my rating up to 2000. Right now, my rating sits at 1946. My peak is just 1948. So I thought that I might as well give it a shot and try to find a tournament. And I was very lucky that there was one near the city that I was staying in, near Berlin. And there was one in Potsdam, and it's only like a 30-minute to 40-minute drive. If it's crowded, but yeah, 30 minutes at most. And they said that they weren't sure if they could fit me in because it was fully loaded, but they said to check in the next day, so on the day of the tournament, maybe they have some spots opening up. So what I did was, my family and I went over to Potsdam, and I was very lucky that they accepted me as a participant. And so I paid the entrance fee, and here are some of the shots of the tournament. There are some, these are some of the boards, I guess, and also there's a book stand. I bought quite a few books. Some of them include like Gelfand's series from Quality Chess, which I'm reading right now, and it's really, really good. I do recommend that to anyone. And also RB Ramesh's calculation book, his new calculation book. So anyways, I am paired up in this first round against 2030-ish player and Daniel Lippert. And I didn't have time to prepare before the game. And basically no one did. Pairings came out like 10 minutes before the round started. So here is the first game presented to you. This is going to be a long video because I really want to like slow down the analysis and really extract as much as I can get from each game, and explain my thought process during the game, computer analysis showing how I could have improved and how my opponent could have improved, and etc. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed the video. See ya. Yeah, so the first round I'm paired up against Daniel Lippert, who is a German player rated 2031. And because I'm playing in the B category, which is for players 1900 to 2100, I start out in the bottom half of this list. And so this is really good for me because I can gain a lot of points if I win. I'm always happy to face a higher rated opponent. And my opponent starts with e4. I did zero prep for this game because I didn't know the pairings until like 15 minutes before the game. And then I play c5. My opponent plays knight f3. I go for d6. And now d4. So we get into an open Sicilian after cd4. Knight takes d4. Knight f6. Knight c3. And I play my main move knight c6 here. Now my opponent goes for bishop g5, which is the most testing line of the Classical Sicilian, the Richter Rouser. And here I need to parry the threat of bishop takes f6, so I play the move e6. And my opponent plays queen d2. And so far this is very normal theory. Now I'm given an option here. I can either play the move bishop e7, and after, let's say, castles. This position has been reached many times. This was probably the old main line of the Classical Sicilian. But the problem that I found, according to my analysis, is this move h4. And I don't think the black fully equalizes, although it does get very interesting. The best move here, I believe, is the move a6 to cut out any piece from using the b5 square. And I really want to take time with this analysis because I think it's also, I want to really respect this game because it's really good for my improvement. And also, it's, I don't see a point to rushing every single move. Because there are many points in this game where I, think about the position and, and really evaluate my options deeply. So my opponent castles here, and I go with the main move bishop d7. So the main point of a6 is if I want to play bishop d7 now, it runs into knight b5, which loses the d6 pawn immediately. So I need to play a6 first, and then after castles, bishop d7. Now the main line has been the move f4, with very aggressive intentions. Typically, black has the option of playing b5, which gets very wild, the casual variation, or bishop e7, the more standard approach. And the game can continue like knight f3 and b5. And yeah, that's possible, but my opponent here goes for f3. Now this is a very typical English attack kind of setup, where white simply wants to advance with g4 and h4 once black has castled on the king side. Now, the best move here, I believe, according to Shanklin, is the move knight takes d4, which I agree with in general, but it's also possible to play bishop e7. And let's say after h4, h6, bishop e3, playing h5 here to prevent the g-pawn advance. And this is also playable. And the point is that white typically can play h4 here, and or they can play the move g4. And against g4, the problem is that it runs into this very serious option of h5, and this really challenges the queen side. So this sequence of knight takes h5, bishop e7, queen takes e7, and even if white ends up winning the d6 pawn, let's say we get this kind of situation, black can at least play like king e7, or first off knight g3 is already immediately a problem. With rook g1, you can take the bishop, take on h2, and black just has a bishop against the knight in this kind of middle game position, which is very nice for black, and also majority on the king side. So yeah, and besides that, like even just a simple king e7, let's say the rook retreats, and then knight f4, something like this with a blockade on the h pawn is quite good, because black can at least double up on the h file, and this is very known. This is very well known to be sufficient, if not more. The competition is at least even here. So that's the reason. The move h4 is probably better, but I didn't go for bishop e7. I went for knight takes d4. Now the idea is that if I play knight takes d4 now, the bishop, which eventually has to retreat to e3, does not get the option of bishop takes d4, which would be a really nice position for the bishop, aiming at both diagonals. Because we see that the typical English attack idea is to go for this g4 advance. But with the bishop on g5, this makes the plan a bit slower, because they're going to have to play bishop e3 back, and only then are they able to play g5. So with this move, knight takes d4, this makes bishop e3 and recapturing on d4 not possible. So now I play bishop e7. Now the main point is that, sure, white can win a pawn, but again, it's very typical compensation is to go for this kind of position. Bishop takes d6, and either the move bishop c6 would be fine for black. Trading the queens doesn't really matter because the bishop pair is very strong. And otherwise, I think queen e7 is even a better move. And this position is just good for black. So instead, my opponent goes for h4. Again, g4 runs into h5, so h4 is more flexible. And now, what I decided to do in the game is castles, which is not the main move. And I kind of played this too fast, I believe, because I thought that I'm gonna eventually have to castle sooner or later, so I do it now, but it's very committal. What I could have done is instead play the move queen c7 and gone for my queenside counterplay really fast. So let's say king b1 and then b5. And then let's say white plays g4, then now I can possibly consider castling, since I've at least gotten a6, a6 b5, and eventually can try to get my other rook into the game and advance with b4. So that's one of the ideas. But instead I play this move castles, which now I know that after playing this game that I should really consider in this f3 line to not castle so early. And I think the best line here for white is simply just to continue with g4, saying that you don't have the moves queen c7 or b5 included yet. So this is a bit slow for you, and so white is going to try to generate a fast attack here, with bishop e3 and the g5 next. Or even bishop e3 pushing h5 first and then advancing g5, so that the knight does not have access to the h5 square. For example, bishop c6 here, bishop e3, b5, g5, knight d7, and here if white wants to advance with h5 and then g6, they're gonna have to play f4 first. But still, I don't think black equalizes in this position because white's attack is very strong while black is kind of slow, though it's still possibly playable. Instead, my opponent goes for queen d2, And after the game, they said that they actually missed the next move. Now the idea is very sneaky here, is that if I play b5, then it runs into a tactical issue after e5. And now after d takes e5, bishop takes f6, simply the defender of the bishop is gone. And so I'm going to lose a piece. Now, the thing is that after, they couldn't do it on the previous move, because if e5, I take and I'm hitting their queen. So with the move queen d2, the idea is just to prepare this e5 advance. So I play bishop c6, getting the bishop out of danger. And I think, again, best is just for white to go for king b1, let's say b5, and go for g4, you know. And this attack is quite strong. But I think my opponent misses the mark here with the move h5. Now the problem with this move is that it just runs into h6. And typically I don't want to play the move h6 because it creates a hook for the g4 pawn to advance. But without the move g4 included, it means that I'm able to handle the g4 advance with a move like knight h7 to take control of the dark squares. So let's say, probably better is to go for g4 immediately so that h5, bishop f6, and then g5 is possibly a threat or something like that. But yeah, instead my opponent goes for h5, I play h6 now. And here's the big problem. If white plays bishop e3, then I could possibly advance with b5, or I could strike in the center with d5. Now I thought this is probably white's best choice, and the point is after white advances with e5 and at d7, white can play f4. And at first glance this looks very strong, and if you want to pause the video to try to find the best move for black, evaluate the various options and try to find the best move here. Yeah, so I didn't see this during the game, but I just felt like my position should be okay. So here I definitely would have found the best move here, which is f6. Now the point is that I am weakening all of the light squares because I have played the move h6 and f6, right? That's clear. All my light squares are weakened. But even if white first off cannot sacrifice the pawn with bishop d3, because after taking, simply the pawn is far too valuable to lose. Let's say I'm threatening e4 next. So I can't do that. And the point is that even if they get the bishop on d3, let's say after takes, and bishop d3, their queen cannot line up on this diagonal, let's say, to try to threaten checkmate on h7. So I think I should be doing fine there. Now, my opponent instead went for bishop f4, which provokes the move e5, which is basically the only move, to not lose d6. And they went bishop e3. Now their point during the game is just to prevent this d5 advance. But I think that my main counterplay is to go for b5 anyway, so it doesn't really matter if I cannot achieve d5, I thought. And in this position, I definitely think g4 is a possibility. But here, a very thematic and nice move is the move knight h7. Now the point is that I'm simply stopping white's attack. Like, there is no attack going on anymore. I will simply, play like queen c7, bring the rook in, advance with b4, and a5, and then a4, things like that. Meanwhile, white cannot advance to the g-pawn, because I have too many defenders of that square. And if white ever pushes f4, then I can simply take. And I figured a position like this would be quite nice for black, because, again, g5 is not coming through. So, even then, like, I can consider moves like bishop g5 to treat the bishops, and then stick a knight on g5 just to stop any advances at all. But instead my opponent plays g3, which is interesting. But I thought that this wasted time because, besides, g4 is the main plan, so why would you play g3? Now the idea is that the next move I thought for quite a bit. So first off, I was thinking, what does g3 actually do? It doesn't really accomplish g4 because it's just wasting a tempo, but I thought that white may want to use this diagonal for the bishop, maybe go for bishop h3, then f5, and then g4. But I thought, this is way too slow, it can't possibly work. Like, black is definitely fast enough to generate counterplay. So originally I thought of this move queen b8, with the idea of pushing b4, but I thought this seems very artificial, and it's better if I just connect my rooks here while developing the queen. So I play queen c7, and now white plays the move g4. So the idea is that my queen has left this diagonal, and so white wants to advance with g5 next. Now here I think I got overexcited, and this is a problem that didn't really occur again after this game in this tournament, but I'm really happy that actually it happened in the first round rather than the second or third round, because um, understanding the psychological problem, like what I thought of this position originally, um, led me to become more objective in the further rounds. Because here I was suddenly excited about the move b4, which I ended up playing in the game. Because what I was thinking is that I played b4, they play knight d5, so I'll just put those moves on the board, and then they play knight d5, and I basically have to capture with the bishop, because after because after knight takes d5, e takes d5, they're getting a tempo on my bishop. So I play knight bishop d5, e d5, and rook of c8. And I thought this was good because genuinely I thought I was just winning a pawn, because I have the threat of knight takes d5, and with the mate threat on c2 here. And what I missed is that white can simply play the move king b1, and I cannot sacrifice my knight anymore because c2 is not checkmate. And I thought that somehow, like, I hallucinated that one of, like, you know, either c1 or d1 would be hanging at some point, but this is just not the case. So I just missed that, and I immediately felt that after king b1 my position was worse already, because I'm getting hit with g5 immediately. So yeah, instead of that, like, I think the simple move knight h7 would have actually given me very good practical chances. Like, I'm not sure what white would have done, because black's attack is quite strong while white doesn't exactly have a strong attack. So yeah, this overconfidence, because I got overexcited, really led to the downfall of this mistake where I played b4 very loose. Like, I could have well prepared it before going for something so drastic. Set knight d5, takes, and then after rook f c8, my opponent plays king b1, which is the only move, and seeing that b4 is weak, I play a5, which is probably not best. What I should have done is I should have played knight h7, again going for the same idea. And the point is that if they ever take on b4, I can take on c2 and then activate my rook on the b file, or even take on c2 and d1 is mate. So I think I missed that. Yeah, I think at this point I should have been more objective and just stopped and just thought, like, what was the best move in this position? Like, forget everything that happened up to this point. What is the best move? And I think I would have found knight h7. And after bishop d3, let's say a5 here now, since c2 is defended, bishop f5, rook c to b8, and now they can take on h7 and advance with g5. This gets a bit dangerous. Queen d3 check, king g8, rook d to g1, a4, bishop takes g5. Yeah, this gets very dangerous, but it's definitely better than what happened in that game, because I played a5 here, and my opponent plays g5, which is not best. Probably best here, and if you want to pause the video and try to find the best move, you can do so. Because in this position, it's very interesting. I've seen this idea before, but it's never really occurred in any of the model games that I've seen. Is this idea with bishop b5, just preparing to go to c6 to cover the c file, and after, let's say, a4 and bishop c6, rook a6, or even like rook b8, let's say, okay, rook b8 just loses the a4 pawn. So even in this position, like, let's say I don't lose the b4 pawn, simply this bishop is just very annoying to deal with, because it's just stopping pressure on the c file, and meanwhile my king is getting attacked. So conceptually that makes a lot of sense, but instead my opponent goes for g5. So I have to take now, and they went for bishop h3. Again, this bishop b5 to c6 idea is very strong, but it's not very common, so a bishop h3 is understandable. And here, if you want to try to find the best move again for black, feel free to do so. So I considered this move, but I didn't really see the consequences of it, because I saw the move g4, which has the idea of simply closing down the g file. Let's say bishop takes g4, knight g4, f g4, queen c4, preparing a4 at some point. And let's say h6, I can play g6, or d to f1, I can play f6 now. And even if h7, king h8, let's say queen d3, attacking g6 and trading the queens, we can get this position, which is definitely worse for black, but it's not dead lost. And instead, if fg4, this is the idea that I didn't see. I didn't see that black could also go for this very interesting move knight e4, and after queen d3, blockade the g-pawn with knight g5. The idea is if white returns now with queen d2, then I can go for the repetition. And if white goes h6, then first off I can play a4, just gaining counterplay. And after hg7, e4, queen e2, I can play b3. And there's a threat of queen takes e2, so cb3, ab3, rook c1 is best here. And I can play queen a5, a3, just stopping the pressure on the a pawn, rook takes c1, bishop takes c1, and eventually take on d5. And surprisingly, I'm getting quite active here, so I didn't see this at all during the game. I thought that I've never seen this idea of like g4 and the funky 94 move, so it doesn't seem to. I didn't think that it would work, but it does, and the reason is that this bishop h3 move is not ideal. Instead, I go for the second best move, rook c to b8. But simply, if white plays bishop takes g5, I'm just much worse. Like, let's say a4, rook d to g1. And what am I going to do against the threat of bishop h6? It's very difficult to stop. Or even bishop f5 first, followed by h6. And that's very dangerous. Instead, my opponent goes for queen g2. Now, I considered two moves in this position. I considered the move knight h7, but I quickly disregarded this because of bishop f5. And I thought that taking on h7 is a serious threat. But my counterplay is very fast here because white has to spend another move with bishop f5 and then taking on h7. So this is actually a nice point that I'm gaining time to defend. Let's say rook hg1 and then a3. White plays b3, queen c3, bishop c1, and then even this move e4, which I didn't see at all. With the threat of bishop f6, this becomes quite dangerous actually. So I didn't realize this during the game. That knight h7, I thought that it just fell into bishop f5 takes h7, but I should have considered it more deeply. Instead, I went for a4, and my opponent goes for bishop takes g5. And here, I still have the chance to go b3, with the nice idea that if they take on b3, okay, let's say c3. I thought that this was kind of dangerous, but ba2, king a1, and a3 is just decisive. But yeah. Instead, I thought cb3, ab3, and a3 would have been possible, but I didn't see the next move, knight takes d5, which is very nice because the point is that if rook takes d5, I can take on g5, and white cannot take back because of this very nice tactic. Queen c2, and rook takes a3, leading to checkmate on a2. So I think because I missed this tactical point of knight takes d5, and I really didn't spend enough time, I think, because I was up a lot of time by this point and throughout the entire game until the very end when we reached an endgame. But yeah, I just didn't seriously consider my options very well, I think. I wasn't very objective, I believe. So instead I went for king h8. And the idea is to meet bishop h6 because I was afraid of bishop h6. Like after b3 takes and a3, I thought that I'm running into bishop h6 very soon. So I thought this was not possible, but instead, so I played king h8. And here, the best move would have been bishop f5, so that now, the threat of h6 and just bringing the rook in is very powerful. But yeah, either way, rook dg1 was played, and now I play rook g8, which is not good, because I think I missed the next sequence, and after bishop f5. I think I underestimated the strength of this move, because it actually comes with a dangerous threat. If you can spot the threat, then kudos to you. Let's say I take on d5. What will white play? So yeah, white will first off just trade off this piece. I can take with the knight or the or the queen doesn't matter. Let's say knight takes e7 just to make this more fancy. Queen g6 is just deadly because I simply can't defend. Okay, maybe now I can escape with knight takes f5. So let's just say queen takes e7. They can play queen g6 here. And I'm just dead because h7 is a mate threat and I can't take because it's going to be checkmate after this. So I saw this in advance after bishop f5 and I thought, oh, this is getting very dangerous. So I played the move a3. I thought that I need to get some counterplay, and they play bishop takes f6, which is actually the correct move. But also, I think bishop e3 or something like this with the threat of queen g6 is possible. But my opponent said that, yeah, they're actually not threatening anything because my knight on on f6 here is actually, controlling the h7 square. But possibly queen g6 followed by, maybe bishop g5 to take on f6 is possible. But it's kind of complicated, it takes some time. So bishop f6 is actually the correct move. And if I play bishop takes f6, then queen g6 is lights out. So gf6. And my opponent quickly played with the move queen d2, which I expected. Actually, I didn't see queen d2, but I thought that, okay, I'm at least not getting checkmated, so I should be okay. But the queen d2 was kind of annoying to face because there's a threat of this and also queen h6. But very luckily for me, I have this move rook g5, just stopping the threat on h6. But actually, in this position, if you want to find the best move for white, feel free to do so. Because white can still play the move queen g6, which we both dismissed during the game. Because of after fg6, hg6, we both thought king g7, rook h7, king f8, rook f7, king e8. This is nothing, we thought. But we both missed that after g7, black is simply lost. Because they can't step up to f7 on account of bishop e6. And if I step to e8, the simple, quiet rook h8 just wins. Because I again cannot take, and I again cannot defend the rook, and this bishop is just slicing down this diagonal. Like if I could escape my king to d7 without this bishop being on f5, I'd simply be, winning. But this is not the case. Now I lose. So we both missed this, and my opponent plays queen d2. Now I play rook g5. Now my consideration during the game is that after they take, because I'm attacking the bishop potentially, so I take. If they take on b4, I could at least play a takes b2, and they can't take on b2 with either piece because rook b8, and so I'm getting some counterplay, I figured. But instead they play b3, which is very smart. And now I play the only move, I think, which is queen c5, to defend the b4 pawn. And before I play queen c5, I did understand that what my opponent was gonna do. They have to break up my queenside pawns because these pawns are very annoying. So the only way to do that is to play the move c3. And the only way to play c3 without hanging a pawn is to play rook c1. And so I saw that is like the strongest plan. So I played queen c5. They play rook c1 to my... it's a quite an unpleasant move to face. But I realized that, okay, potentially, if I play a move like, let's say they don't even play c3. Let's say I play rook a5 to attack the d5 pawn. White can even play bishop e4. And my bishop on e7 is just simply bad. And I realized that during the game, and I said to myself, okay, I need to sacrifice the pawn with e4. And after this, I suddenly felt that maybe my position isn't that bad. Maybe I'm fighting back here. Because after fe4 and bishop f6, c4 or c3 is no longer possible, and I am threatening some things on the dorsal diagonal. And my opponent plays a surprising move to me that I didn't see during the game. At this point, I think I was up like 20 minutes to my opponent's like maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And my opponent plays e5, which I didn't see. But the point is very clear. If I take with the d pawn, then d6 followed by d7 is very annoying. And if I take with the bishop, queen 6 g5 I thought was actually very annoying. But surprisingly, this doesn't work, and black has the advantage here, if you can find the next move. Yeah, I thought that I was losing here because queen h6, but I could simply play bishop g7. And I am threatening queen d4, queen c3, and if white plays h6, now I return back to e5, and there is no longer queen h6. So that was a very nice sequence that I actually missed. So, but instead, I played the second best move, bishop g7, saying that now, okay, I want to take on e5. If you take on g5 now, then I again have queen c3. This is mating. And I want to take on e5 later. So my opponent plays c3. And luckily, I have bc3, rook takes c3, and queen g1 check. This is very important. After I find this move, I think I'm basically fine. For rook c1, I think queen c1, I can just take on c1 and then take on e5 with a fine position. But instead rook c1, and I play the only move here. I play queen g3 with the idea of taking on e5 or just going queen e5 with threats along the diagonal. And I think I'm already better here. So from a dead loss position, which my opponent missed a tactical sequence to win, I'm suddenly much, slightly better here. And it's a difficult position to play because my opponent has to play h6, which they didn't find. The point is that my bishop now has to go to e5, because I don't want to open up the h file. So I play bishop e5, and at least my queen is not on the long diagonal. So that's the idea. But my opponent under time pressure plays bishop d3 and allows me to line up my queen along the diagonal. And I think I'm close to winning here. It just takes good technique. And my opponent plays king c2. And I was considering here, should I play rook c8? Should I play another move? I only saw rook c8 and queen b2, and also queen takes d5 as candidate moves. But after queen b2, king d1, I didn't see any way to try to continue this attack. So I quickly, I disregarded that. After rook c8, also bishop c4 I considered kind of annoying. But perhaps I could have gone for this. Instead, I went for queen takes d5. Now, during the game, I just said that, okay, this may not be the best move, but I am winning a pawn, and this is quite an, it's better to be up a pawn than not up a pawn, I figured. And my opponent plays here queen e2. And I saw that they were threatening queen e4, and, trying to get some chances in the endgame with the opposite colored bishops, maybe holding a draw. And I considered the move f5 just to stop queen e4, but I thought, why do I need to play this move which might weaken my king? But actually it doesn't weaken my king, because the threat of queen e4 is very serious, and once I get my pawns rolling, this is quite dangerous for white to deal with because I have more assets to play with. Instead, I played queen d4, which allows the move queen e4, which my opponent didn't play. And they went king d2. Now, again, I probably should have played d5 here to prevent queen e4, but I went for the lazy bishop e5 because I thought that after queen e4, I was winning because of a tactic. I thought that I was winning because of I could play bishop f4 first. And now I thought after king e2, I could take on e4. Now both rooks are hanging, so I need to play rook e8, attacking the bishop. And after rook c4, I have d5, and I'm just winning. But I completely missed that after king d1, I have no time to play queen g1 check and take the rook, because white is simply threatening queen h7 checkmate. So I'm essentially forced to take on e4 in this position. And I thought that, okay, opposite colored bishops will lead to an endgame and probably be fine. Let's say, bishop c1, bishop takes a8. And I figured that if I get my bishop on b4, then I'm probably going to be winning. But the thing is that white is going to get a lot of tempi to be able to activate their king. I have to play like bishop e3, and b4 is possible already, and a king c2 to b3. And I thought this was dangerous with the passed pawn. But in hindsight, I probably should have went for this. Instead, I played, rook e8. This is probably the best line. And after rook c4, I no longer have d5 because the king is not on the e file. And I play king g7, just improving my king, not allowing the h-pawn to advance. And my opponent plays bishop f3 here. Now, I thought this was inaccurate because of rook e3, which I played in the game. But in hindsight, I probably should have played rook e5, just getting my rook active and preparing f5 followed by g4 next. Let's say rook a4, f5. And if white ever takes on a3, then I can play g4. And this was partly winning. Instead, I played rook e3. And I missed that they could actually play bishop e2. So I thought that this was forced to play bishop g4, rook g3, bishop d7, and the king h6 where I will eventually round up the h-pawn. But maybe even after bishop e8, this gets unclear. So I'm not exactly sure what I saw in this line. But I missed bishop e2, which is not a good sign. And so I play rook e5 back. I just want to go rook c5 and trade off the rooks, after which I'll probably be winning. So they play rook a4. And here, under severe time pressure, I have 2 minutes, but my opponent also has 2 minutes. We both have 30 seconds increment, but the first move that I thought in the game is to go for this bishop c1 because I saw some ghosts, genuinely. I thought that, okay, first off, king c1 is not good because I can take, and then put g4. Let's say rook a4, I can play f5, and this is just winning with the connected pass pawns. But this is this is way too fancy. If you have a winning position and you want to convert the advantage, one of the main things to consider is that don't play any fancy moves. Just keep it simple. More often than not, a simple move is the correct move. And here, After bishop c1, my opponent plays rook a6. Now, I blundered here completely. I should have played bishop f4, which is admitting my mistake, with the point that they cannot take on d6 here because I take on e2 with the discovered attack. But yeah, this is just simply admitting my mistake, which I couldn't find myself doing. And so I played this very careless d5 move, which loses on the spot to h6. And here's the problem. If I step on the h-file on h7, bishop d3 is not even just winning my bishop, it's actually checkmating me because I step on the back rank. And if I go to f8, which I played in the game, my opponent gives a check, and h7, and I resign in this position. So this was a very crucial position where I basically had a meltdown after this move d5. Like, it was completely unnecessary. But yeah, I mean, it stemmed from a couple of situations in this game. So I learned a couple things. First off, bishop c1 is just horrible. Like, besides king takes c1 and rook takes e2, it doesn't do anything else besides, maybe defending a3, but, more often than not, moves like this just don't work. And secondarily, I think the main issue that I had from the middle game is that I became complacent. I saw the possibility of b4, and without calculating fully the consequences of it, and not, housekeeping my king first to just, get my king safe, I immediately went for b4, which is very impatient. Now, after knight h7, I think I would have very good chances to actually win this game, because even though the valuation is equal, the point is that I have an attack and white does not. So I think, yeah, I learned a lot of things from this game just to keep, cool my nerves. Yeah, just b4 is very committal. It's just very bad. And I learned a lot also in this variation, like, also not committing castling too early, instead playing a move like queen c7. So this game was very useful to me, and I think I will use a lot of the themes I learned here for my future games. So yeah, that's the first round. I am on 0 out of 1, but I still have 4 rounds to go, and on the first day, I have 1 more round to play. So I'm still, I'm not devastated by it or anything, so I just want to continue to play, hopefully play good chess and win some games along the way. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.